Welcome to Bitter Reality Brewing. As promised, we're going to brew with the Brewferm Homebrew Starter Kit. It was sent to us by Brewferm. Thank you. Special thanks out to Brewferm. Don't forget, like, subscribe. Thank you again for all the sharing. Check out Brewferm. I'm going to make sure there's a coupon code down below. Get you 10% off. Try to hook some people up for Christmas. If you're looking to hook them up, it's a great gift, especially for somebody who's maybe never brewed and just wants to try it. Or if someone's been brewing and it's snowing, you're getting all that lovely winter weather up north, not down here in Florida, but up north. You can even order them a kit, or you could subscribe, get 30% off, and get them on it every 90 days for however long I guess you want to pay for it. And they can brew when you can't go outside. In Florida, it's hurricanes and massive thunderstorms. That's the only thing that usually keeps us inside, or it's just too hot and we try to run the AC until it breaks, but it is what it is. So let's get brewing. Let's open this up, go through what we got. Take this out, take the box. When you get it shipped to you, the box it comes in is actually only a tiny bit bigger than this box, and it arrived very safely, which I actually have that other box back here on the floor. Okay, this is your fermenter. Even in all grain brewing, a lot of people use these types of plastic fermenters. They're food safe, they're fine. The only difference with this one, instead of being a white generic bucket, it's got a cool label on it, some stickers on it. It just looks cool. But you got this little tiny rubber grommet, and that grommet is for what we call your bubbler. It slides right in here, and what it'll do, now you'll have to wash all this stuff and we'll go over that. That's going to let the CO2 escape, because when it's fermenting, you want a lot of oxygen and air in your wort, which is your final product before it ferments. But after that, you don't want to allow any more oxygen in. It can cause your beer to get really funky and not taste good in any way, or it can contaminate it with some sort of dust or wild yeast that can also make it not good. So there's your bubbler, and what it's going to do is allow the CO2 to escape without allowing any other air in, because you'll put water in those little compartments. Set that over there for now. Get a cool thing talking about the 11 different kits they have. Basically, they're all malt extracts. So all you need to know is how to stir water, sugar, and sweet malty goodness together to make the beer. And then of course you'll add the yeast. And the yeast that comes with them is premium. So I'm gonna set that aside. I already took the cap off of this. We're doing a Dubel, Dames Dubel, and it comes with a Belgian monk's ale yeast. If you're doing the Sacred Saison, which is the most popular to come with the kits, it has its own yeast and instructions in it too. And that's one thing I did take notice to, but we'll get to that. We have 24 stickers that we can put on top of the bottles to make them look really cool and just make them look cool, show them off. This is your bottle filler. It comes with a special adapter so it can hook on the spigot. The spigot will actually go right up on here, and we'll go about that and I'll show you how that works. So we're gonna set the bottle filler aside because you're not gonna need that for at least about 2 weeks, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. The spigot, we're gonna clean that. Remember, one side is open, one side is closed. That's something to be very aware of when you start pouring beer in here that you're gonna ferment, because what's gonna happen is if it's open, it's just gonna keep going out the other side. So you wanna be very careful. It's something just to double check, triple check. Got 6 coasters. You won't be needing those for a little while. We got our carbonation drops, which are kind of cool. You basically, instead of having to measure out your carbonation or your carbing sugar, because you add sugar back to your beer later on, and what remaining yeast is available eats it and converts it into additional CO2 to build your carbonation in your beer. Well, these are little drops. You just drop one in for every 12-ounce bottle. It takes care of it, no measuring required. Very cool. You have this, which is called a brewing compass, which is really a simplified version of a hydrometer. In beer, the hydrometer measures what they call original gravity is to your final gravity, and then there's calculations that you can do. They're not hard, but there's online calculators that make it super simple, and it will give you your estimated ABV. So it could be off a little bit, that's why it's estimated, and each calculator seems to be using a different formula, because occasionally it's off a little bit. Kind of cool. It's not a super detailed hydrometer with all the numbers on it. It's just something you're supposed to use towards the end to verify that you have finished fermentation and verify that you're at the right gravity per se. We have our OxyClean. It's a oxygen-based cleaner. It reacts with the water, helps to sterilize, or should we say sanitize everything to as close to sterilization as possible. This is a great, you got 100 grams here, 3.5 ounces, more than enough. Only takes a half to 1 ounce per half gallon. And in here they talk about just adding a teaspoon to several cups of hot water to clean everything. If you're going to be cleaning something like this, you kind of just, soak it. Otherwise this, you're just going to rinse it around and make sure it hits everything. There's 2 different instruction sets. One came with it and one came with the actual malt. The only difference I notice is one measures by cup for your sugar and the other one measures by grams. If you have a scale, I would recommend using it, doing it by grams. It's more accurate. So it's just accuracy. And if you've ever cooked or baked bread, everything's done by weight on certain things. It just makes it more accurate. What do you need beyond that? We have a little temperature thing that we can put on here to see what the temperature is for fermentation. You're gonna need a couple things. You're gonna need 2 small pots. One pot, you're just gonna heat up tap water, set your extract kit in and let it get warm for about 15 to 20 minutes. You don't want to boil it or anything. You just want it nice and hot, put it in there. It's gonna soften it up so it comes out a lot easier. You're gonna have another pot that is going to be to heat your spring water. They recommend either filtered or bottled water. I'm going with bottled and I'm going with spring water. Brewers that have been brewing for a long time usually prefer RO or distilled water and they add their brewing salts. It's not necessary for this. It comes out amazing without doing all that craziness. So just go with spring water if you're starting out. If you want to get crazy, go for it. And then I'm going to use corn sugar. They recommend granulated sugar, but really if you bought 3 of these and you use different sugar in each one, and that includes, you could do brown sugar, date sugar, it's going to impact the flavor and it's going to taste different. It'll still probably taste great. It's just going to taste different. So that's something to be aware of. You could actually brew it again and say, you know what? I'm going to change the sugar just because I want to try it. I want to see what it's going to be like. So boom, let's try it. Other item you're going to need. We've got a can here. So you're going to need a can opener. Keep that in mind. You're going to need a spoon, preferably long handled, so you're not putting your hand in hot water or sticky sugar. I like the little perforated, just my personal preference, not a big deal. You're also going to need a measuring cup. I like this one because it has all the markings on the top so I can look down. Otherwise, Pyrex is good. You can heat the water up in the Pyrex and not have to worry about breaking or damaging anything. And that's pretty much it. The difference on this is instead of doing the Sacred Saison, we're doing the Dubbel Dame, which is basically a Belgian Dubbel. It's traditionally dark, chocolatey, full-bodied, and usually has a rich caramely aftertaste. These beers are usually require a longer maturation, as they say, if I can say that word properly, but it basically means that it takes longer to mature. Doesn't mean it won't taste good after just the first few weeks, but the longer you let it sit, the smoother the flavors kind of mellow out and everything kind of comes together really nice. It's a lot of darker beers do really well with a little bit of aging. Great for, winter, fall, winter is a big time for the Dubbel. I drink them off and on throughout the year. So remember, all you need beyond the basics, of course, when you start brewing is water, sugar, and the extract. That's it. The expected original gravity of this is going to be 1.070. I know that's a little on the advanced side, but it's on the website. It's something just to be aware of. You hear those numbers and eventually they start making sense to you. The ABV expected is 8.5. I'm going to be impressed if we're hit up there. That's pretty high. But if you've seen our other videos with the Beastly Belge and the Sacred Saison, expectation is here and they always exceed it. I'm not sure if I like it that they exceed it with the alcohol, but compared to most extracts, usually they say it's this and it's somewhere in the low end. So it's always nice to exceed expectations. And for people who understand a little bit of the IBU average, which means a bitterness, is 50. That seems very bitter. That's like on the high side for a pale ale and on the low side for an IPA. But remember, the reason you add hops or bittering originally to beer is to balance the sweetness. And because this will be a sweeter, heavier beer, you want the higher IBU to kind of balance it out so it's balanced. And balanced beers taste so much better than ones that taste like sugar bombs or super bitter. It's all a balancing game and you want that. So let's get cleaning so we can get brewing. Okay, I'm gonna take you into our kitchen to do a little cleaning, but just a heads up too, when I open this, I got a couple little tiny shavings of plastic. I don't see any rough edges. It's probably from when they cut the hole here. So just something to be aware of. I'm gonna clean this really good. I'll put it on and then we'll go from there and we'll add our cleaning solution to the full system. I'm trying to think of anything that's gonna touch the wort after, actually as it's being put in, because we're not gonna boil it, needs to be cleaned. That means the lid, the bubbler, the spigot. Of course, you're gonna wanna clean your little hydrometer before you use it, but you don't need that until much later, so we'll be fine. The spoon, and everything else, basically anything that's gonna touch it, we wanna make sure is clean. That's the whole key for people who've never brewed. Cleanliness, before and after. You have to make sure everything is as close to sterile, which means sanitized, as possible. Not asking you to put it in an oven and sterilize it, just as clean as possible. That way we avoid any kind of contamination. So let's get cleaning. Okay, I've already got that nice and hot. I might have it a little too hot, hopefully it's not too bad. There we go. I'm gonna just drop that in there and let it soak for about 15-20 minutes. Okay, when you got the cleaning solution, I really don't think you have to measure it to be exact. Definitely don't inhale. Almost a third of that. Got about a half gallon of water in here, so it's pretty good. Mix it up. You do want to rinse after you've cleaned everything. This is not, for people who are familiar with Star San, it's not a no rinse cleaner from my understanding, from what I've read. Put that in there. Open this up a little bit. Little rubber pieces. Actually, just take it all the way off. That way we know it's going to get clean in every little nook and cranny. Drop it in. And this stuff, just like other cleaners, can irritate your skin for prolonged exposure, so be careful, be aware. Make sure this is open so that you get some flow through it when you get it all clean. And the bubbler. And this one you're going to kind of have to shake a little to get the liquid to go through it. Okay, I'll let that sit for about 10 minutes. And then we'll take it and we're going to use that same solution and we're going to rinse out the bucket, clean the lid, make sure everything's 100%. Okay, been long enough. I'm going to take this, simply rinse it over in my sink. Remember, we're going to clean this, but the water is going to go right through it. So, and of course I set my spoon down, but that's okay, we'll clean it. So we'll take this. Put your rubber grommet on the front. Kind of mentioned earlier is if you leave it kind of wet, it's going to seal a lot easier. And then that's it. Look to make sure you have it open. You're going to want to close it. You're going to push it through. Very snug, which is actually a good thing. Put your other rubber grommet on the inside. Don't have to worry about it being tight, because what you're going to do is this is your tightening nut. And that's going to go right inside here. It's a little tight, I know, as far as work area, but, and then just spin it around until it gets close, and then tighten it up a little bit. Don't go nuts, you don't want to break it, but you do want it nice and snug because you don't want liquid, especially beer, to pour out everywhere, or wort as it's called before it's fermented. But you can test this with water too to make sure that you fill it up with quite a bit of water. I saw a comment about somebody saying that it leaked. Well, obviously they didn't test it with water, and water is a lot cheaper than beer and a lot less sticky. So we're going to test this out after we clean it. I'll go ahead and run the cleaner through here. You don't need to watch all that, and we'll start brewing. Actually, I will show you a little trick. Basically, I've tightened this, snapped it all down so it's nice and secure, and you have to push very firmly to get it to snap. Put your finger over the hole. Now I can just shake it. It's under pressure a little. And you can keep doing that, just kind of getting all that cleaning solution on everything. Little trick. A little messy, but a little trick. Okay, so here we go. This is all being cleaned out. This, I was thinking too, because you gotta set the lid somewhere. Afraid it gets contaminated or something, or dirt. You just rinse it just before you put it on the top. Not a big deal. A little bulging, which means I may have got it a little extra hot. So when you first pop this, and let's get all the water off, you're gonna have a little bit of the heat release if you did it like I did. So go nice and slow and careful. Yep, you can hear kind of bubbling a little. I went a little excessive probably. And you can get a cooking thermometer or something like this helps. There we go, we're about 123, 124. It won't be much over 122 because I saw some references to 122 Fahrenheit at a height, and I don't know what this is rated for, so we really didn't want to exceed that. Don't pour boiling water in your fermenter. Not recommended. As you pull this lid off, it's gonna be covered in malt extract, so I'm gonna put that on top of there. So you wanna make sure you have somewhere to put the lid. And if you got your, actually that's our hot spring water, we don't need this anymore. Little trick. Having a second person hold the lid would be good, but okay, we'll get it. There we go. Okay. And it's safe to eat. Okay. We're gonna dump the malt in, and then the malt, it's gonna leave a lot behind inside of the container. So what you're gonna do, and you really kind of need to keep track, as far as I'm concerned, I like detail. And the detail is that we're at 1.32 gallons of US water that we're gonna have to add, which is equivalent to 169 ounces. So if you do everything 4 cups or 32 ounces, you can just keep deducting 32 ounces. If you have to scribble it down, scribble it down. But the first thing it says that we need to do is add the extract. This is really pretty, although this is very dark, so not quite as shiny as some of the lighter brown ones. There you go. There's the picture. And be careful because the paper is going to be soft and you don't want paper in your beer. So just something to be aware of. And I don't really recommend shoving the spoon in there to dig it out yet. Just kind of get it going. Get a stopping point if you can, where you're not going to make a giant mess. There you go. Add your heated water to your measuring cup. There we go, we're about 32 ounces. Do this somewhere where if you spill a little water, it's not gonna matter. Okay. There we go. Now we take our spoon, just stir gently. You're just trying to get all that extra malty goodness out of there and add it into the final product. One of the tricks is the longer you leave the hot water in the can, the more the malt will just fall off the sides of the can and into the hot water. So there's 32 ounces. Okay. And we could probably go another one, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add our sugar. Like I said, instead of using it by cups, I measured it by grams. We have 500 grams here of corn sugar. Granulated sugar works great, brown sugar works. It will make the flavor a little different, but it'll still taste amazing, in my opinion. So let's go to another 32 ounces, which will put us at 64 ounces of water. And I'm gonna run it through the can because there's still a tiny bit of malt in there and I like it all. There we go. One more shake here and I'm gonna drop that lid back in there to get the rest of that malt off there. There we go. Dump that in. Don't just dump the water in because you want to measure it all so you know exactly how much water you've added. So we've added 64 ounces. This is another 18, which is 82 ounces. Add that in there. And before we add the cold water, stir this up and get it all blended up nice. It's gonna make 2.5 gallons, so it's one of the smaller batches, but one of the big batches. far as the ABV. It's definitely a stronger beer. Put this in the can because it's got a little malt on it. So we need to make up the rest of the water. So we're at 82. We add another 32. It's 84. So 114. And remember, this is just spring water. So 114 plus 32, we're at 146. So there's 146 ounces. Now we take 146 from 169, leaves us with 23, so we need 23 more ounces. There we go. Dump that in there. And I know it's kind of hard to see, and as you see, I have my spigot over the edge. But as I'm doing this, it's getting all bubbly in there. It looks like foam. You want that. That foam is all that air that's kind of in the beer, and in that air is a little bit of oxygen, and that oxygen is what the yeast is going to need as it begins eating those sugars. Once it gets to a certain point, terminal velocity, you could say, it's not going to need any more oxygen, and oxygen exposure is going to be very bad. So it's kind of funny, when you're doing beer, you want lots of oxygen in the beginning and no oxygen once things are starting to ferment and jamming out. When it's finished, definitely no oxygen. A lovely foam. Okay, let's see if we can get a temperature reading, which is a little hard to shoot through foam. Okay, we're sitting at 92 Fahrenheit. So what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to let this cool down. They say to cool down to about 68 Fahrenheit. The yeast is designed to run between 68 and 72. Belgian yeast is a little more forgiving, to go up a few degrees or down a few degrees. My tap water isn't going to ever get down to 68 degrees, not in Florida, maybe up north. So we're going to let this cool down to the low 70s. We'll pitch the yeast. So let's give it a little bit of time to cool and we'll resume. I am going to put the lid over it, so it's not going to cool off quite as fast, but I kind of need to avoid any kind of contamination. Just for now. Okay, we're down to about 74 degrees, that's fine. I've got water in the bubbler. You got to make sure you put that in there. That keeps the air from getting in. I've already stirred it up, got it all nice and bubbly per se. Yes, this is a little trick to getting the temperature down. I put some ice packs around the side. I did see a problem too that I don't notice being mentioned in the manual, and I'll show you, and it's easy fix. Okay, so we're gonna take this Belgian Monk's Ale, which is a Belgian ale, yeast. And all you're gonna wanna do, you can put it in just a little bit of warm water, and I say lukewarm, like 74, 76, I know it's kind of cold, but you just sprinkle this across the top, and that's really all you need to do. You can stir it up if you really want to, not a big deal, and a lot of the yeast will stick from static electricity in there. My little way of getting it out, just smack it, get it all in there. Give it a little stir. I'm not gonna worry, it'll soak in, it'll be fine. Here's two things. One, make sure when you push down here, it pops. It's actually locking. It'll snap a little around the edges. You gotta make sure it's sealed as well as you can. You can put it in your closet, your basement, whatever. Oh, the water to kind of balance out there. There we go, and I'll put it back in there. Okay, there we go. Here's the problem I found. And I didn't see it mentioned. Something they don't mention in the manual, that at least I didn't see it. So it did. The whole thing turns. If you're gonna turn it to the right, that's fine. But actually, just this piece by itself turns. So you don't have to turn the whole piece. And if you turn it the wrong way, you're gonna loosen it and you're gonna end up with beer spilling. So just turn that so that it's like this. That way it's not gonna hit anything. Once it's done fermenting and you go to bottle, you'll turn just that piece, and that way you can do the bottling. And on top of that, the yeast, you'll have a yeast bed on the very bottom, and it should be just below the edge of that, so that it's a good thing. You don't want that, you just want the beer. Thank you again for joining us here at Bitter Reality Brewing. Special thanks going out to Brewferm. Don't forget to like, subscribe so you see part 2, where we actually do the bottling and the taste testing. Thank you again. Appreciate it.